Hello, and thank you for your interest in the PII Vault plugin for Domo Workbench. In this video, we're going to provide a conceptual overview of anonymous data matching. Another video will show you how to actually configure the plugins to perform this step. But let's start with what is anonymous data matching. It doesn't seem somewhat counterintuitive to think that you can fully anonymize data before it gets into Domo, and then still inside Domo, link that data together either from the same source or other sources at the individual level and use it for your analytics. Well, that's exactly what the PII Vault does. Let's start with the Transform plugin and what happens to your data after it goes through the Transform plugin. Let's have some very simple data here. We've got the customer's name, their customer number, email, and some goods and services by sales region. When we use the Transform plugin, or even the Transform connector, the data that we got inside of Domo were the details, the sales region, goods and services that we want to use for analytics. We also have a non-identifying polyanonymous or poly ID. The poly ID can be used to combine data on the same individual when it comes from the same data source and is keyed off of the same value, in this case, the customer number. It's also called polyanonymous because it has multiple values. The data that is stored inside the PII Vault, namely those values that were marked in the Transform plugin or the connector as PII, they get stored inside the Vault with a different value. It's one of the most important things to recognize on this screen. Another important item to recognize is that none of the identifying details are in Domo. Third, none of the data that you're interested in, none of the sales data in this case, is inside the Vault. This data separation is also a critical component, security component of the PII Vault. But with anonymous data matching, we're looking at data that comes from two or more sources. In this case, we've got the sales data we just looked at, and we've got credit history. The sales data is coming from somebody with an account ID inside of the PII Vault of ABC. And the credit history is coming from an organization that has the account ID inside the PII Vault of DEF. Now, when that data goes through the Transform plugin, each using their own credentials, that customer is going to be assigned different polyanonymous ID values. And the data that you want is going to be in Domo, just as it was in the earlier screen. Inside the PII Vault, we have that profile now twice because two different sources have loaded it with two different accounts. So it's going to get two different poly ID values. So now all the data that you want to perform reports on is inside Domo. But you can't link it together yet because there's no way to do that. That's where the data source plugin from PII Vault comes into play. What you have to do inside that plugin is define the rules by which you want to combine and equate those different profiles. So we have two different profiles right now. We have a profile provided by account ABC and a profile provided by account DEF. In our terminology, when we go through and we match profiles from one account to another, there's always a left-hand side and a right-hand side. So looking at the data we had, we're going to say that in this case, if the left-hand side first name is equal to the right-hand side first name, and the left-hand side last name is equal to the right-hand side last name, and the left-hand side email address is equal to the right-hand side email address, then that is a match. And the PII Vault reader will bring this information back into Domo and can be used to link those two different sources of data. Now, what about when you have more than one, or actually, I'm sorry, more than two different accounts? If you only have ABC and DEF, it's really quite simple, and it's what we just showed. But if you had three accounts, ABC, DEF, and GHI, how does this work? What's left-hand side? What's right-hand side? It seems like it'd get really complicated. but it actually doesn't because each pair is taken in turn. Initially, ABC will be marked against DEF, just like we saw. And when that's done, ABC will run against GHI. And every match between each of those will be reported. Next, we then go to DEF against GHI. When that's finished, GHI is not going to run it here. We have successfully run the algorithms and the matching criteria in every unique pair of accounts. So that's how the matching works at a conceptual level. As I said, the next video will actually show you how to set that up inside of Domo Workbench. Thank you very much.